Okay, today we're going to add to Tilden. We've got a couple of other sources to go to and use, including the one from your assigned book, The Elements of Style by Strunk and White. In fact, it's better known as Strunk and White than it is The Elements of Style. And it's also better known as a punctuation grammar book, but and the title is Elements of Style, and that's the section we're going to use. But whenever you're writing, you need a quick guide to punctuation, especially. Pull out your Strunk and White. Okay, so Elements of Style. This is their opinion, and here's their first piece of advice. Begin by resolutely turning away from all devices that are popularly thought to indicate style, all mannerisms, tricks, and adornments. The approach to style is by way of plainness, simplicity, orderliness, and sincerity. And most authors will tell you that, yes, you begin by writing well and writing simply. You can develop beyond that later, but only once you have really established these simple, orderly, sincere, plain ways of writing and speaking. So this book is written for the written word, and an interpreter does do a fair bit of writing, but they also do a fair bit of speaking to audiences. Okay, place yourself in the background. Sure, you are an interesting person to have that job. It's different than the jobs that most people have. So do feel free to have a personality, a little bit of a life, particularly as it relates to your Park Service job. But keep it there. Don't talk about yourself, your personal life. I did one ranger walk, and I learned all about their upcoming divorce, about the problem with the teenage children. It really did distract from what I went there for, which was not to be a therapist for this person. So, yes, place yourself in the background. Do have a personality. Your lifestyle is of interest to many. Okay, so in the idea of plainness, write and speak in a way that's natural. You can imitate people to a little bit, but not really. What you want to do listen to a lot of presentations. Do listen to Tom Hanks when he's being interviewed. He's a fascinating speaker, even when he's not using lines. So watch them, see what they do, see how they get your interest. But you'll never talk like Tom Hanks. So absorb what you can from them, learn from them, but then you have to bring it to your personality. Now, these are presentations. This is a performing art. So we talked about storytelling as an art, but just your whole presentation is a performing art, just like dance, like playing piano, your presentation. So what you want to do is be the best you that you can be. And yes, before you start a presentation, you may stand tall, take a big breath, and then start out with that slightly more animated version of you. All right, work from a suitable design is going to be something we've talked about throughout this class with organization and theme and stuff. So a plan that fits the scope, the time, the audience. This is the whole idea behind Tilden. So again, I'm supplementing Tilden with these other sources, such as the Elements of Style. So have a plan that fits the time, the scope, the audience, and put together your presentation. In Capitol Reef, you have 15 minutes, which right now that sounds like a lot to you, but someday you'll say, wow, I got to do something that brief. Okay, themes. We've been talking about themes. It's part of organization. It's what holds everything together. Also use this structure most of the time. Usually we do best, especially in the beginning, to do an introduction, a body, and then a conclusion. And when you're writing these, we've talked about this, that you're probably going to write the body first and the conclusion after that, and then figure out what it is you need to introduce. So that's just in your preparation stage. I did watch a movie the other night that is completely nonlinear, and it takes to the very end of the 2 hours to finally figure out the order of things. Don't do that to your audience. Okay. They had 2 hours of a fixed image and to do that with. You should think simple. Okay. Writing and speaking with nouns and verbs rather than adverbs and adjectives as much. Okay, what does that look like? Active verbs such as running, skipping, hopping can tell you a lot more about how someone moves than describing how they move. Just find those good verbs. And then nouns and pronouns can be a bit of a problem. Use nouns, use them frequently. If you have to use technical terms, define them, but try to limit their use. In that puzzles thing, I did drop in a few of the genus names of those plants. A few people in your audience would appreciate it. Most people want you to just move right back. Although I love the name dodecatheon for shooting star. So see if you can figure out what dodecatheon stands for. That's a total aside from this. Okay, pronouns are a problem because we don't use them correctly even in writing, and especially not when we are speaking. So the proper way to use a pronoun is that it refers to the most recent noun. But we tend to use pronouns to go back to our main topic, even if it wasn't the last one spoken about. So it can be very, very confusing. For which I have written this, to which that does this, that refer. So watch out on pronouns. You restate your nouns even in writing. Okay, revise and rewrite. You never get anything perfect. Everything can be improved. I want to tell you one quick story. I was in a writing class. It was a wonderful class where the guy was professor of the year. And he had a budget and he flew in 2 authors every other week. And then we would have meet them in the class. They would do a reading at the library. And then in the evening, they did a recorded presentation in an auditorium. And the professor was one of the last 2 writers. So he spoke at his own presentation, his own class, which was great because I really have enjoyed his writing. And it was pretty interesting because he had just turned in a manuscript to the publisher and he was reading from his soon-to-be published book. And it was interesting because he was reading at his auditorium presentation in the evening that was recorded live and on KUED, sorry, the TV version. And he pulled a pencil out from behind his ear, crossed out some of the stuff he had just turned in to the publisher, hid the manuscript, and corrected it. And he said, boy, I hope I can make this change before it goes to print. And then he continued on with his reading. So even at that stage where he considered it a done enough, he still considered it a draft. So all the work that you do can be improved on. Yes, I know most of you turn in first drafts. Not a good idea. You should struggle over every paragraph, every sentence. Okay, do not overstate, especially with adults. Unjustified superlatives can cost you credibility if people know otherwise. And kids have a lot of fun with this, and you can do it in a way that's legit by saying, this is the tallest cliff in the park. This is the best hike, in my opinion, for the amount of time that you have. You really don't want to be saying this is the best hike in the world. This is the tallest cliff anywhere, because, unless it's Nanga Parbat, it's not the tallest cliff. So yes, but with kids, they love hearing about the biggest, the tallest, etc. But be careful. Don't fool your kids. Do say it's the biggest one that you can see. It's the biggest one nearby. Kids can have a lot more fun with that, but don't lie to them. All right, the use of qualifiers. We use this. Rather, way, very little, pretty. There are some of these that are quite popular right now. Like is the one that I hear and have trouble with a lot. So a quick example here. We were looking at putting new windows in, and what we were wondering is what, as we called and got bids from each different company, was we wanted wood frames. So not fiberglass, not metal, but wood. And I was listening to my wife speaking to the person at the other end, the company, and she said, "So are these wood?" And the answer at the other end was, "Yeah, well, these are like wood." And my wife kept going, "So is it wood or not wood?" "Yeah, they're like wood." And so are they like wood or are they actually wood? "Yeah, they're like wood." And my wife hung up. We never did know if they were wood or like wood. So yeah, we didn't go with that company. But that's an example of these words that slip into our language. We use them a lot. Do not affect a breezy manner. Don't go running off in long, fancy sentences with lots of adjectives. So yeah, stick to your material. Be informative. Be careful about going too romantic. There might be places and times, but be careful. All right, orthodox spelling. Of course, speaking, that's not so obvious. The Camus Cafe, spelled cafe, K-A-F-E, Old Towny Mall, those things can drive people crazy. So use, and I'm going to tie into this slang, so use orthodox words that you would use at school, at a career, at a job interview. Sure, a few people will be of your generation and use your slang, but you're talking to a much broader audience most of the time, so be careful about generational slang. Certainly some of it crosses generations. So yeah, just watch for that in your own speaking. Yes, be clear. Really run through your material. Make sure it's clear. Show it to other people. Present to other people that are willing to be a good audience, an honest audience for you. But the simplicity of this is have something to say it, and get your facts right. It's amazing how many people will know more than you do about some tiny specific. So there's a quick review of 7. There are more in the book. These are the ones I pulled together for this interpretive class. And you'll see echoes of Tilden in there. I think these complement Tilden. All right, continuing to reach out to other people. Leaving Strunk and White, we're going to take a look at intrinsic motivation, because often your job, Tilden number 4, is to provoke changes. One way to head toward intrinsic, or getting people to internalize the motivation, changes in behaviors, changes in attitudes that you're working toward. These 3 C's can be very helpful, and you'll see echoes of Tilden here too. So community is the first one. So building connections. So this is Tilden, making connections, relating to that person in that place. So draw people together so they're working together, and draw them to you so that they're working with you. So problem solve as a team, as a community, rather than just saying, I'm the boss, here's what you have to do. Instead of saying, yeah, you need to not shortcut trails. Instead, pull everybody together and say, what are the problems of cutting across switchbacks, and what are the solutions? So building community, problem solving together. Okay. Content needs to be real. If things aren't a problem, it's, you mention them and move on just so they don't become a problem. But yeah, for the most part, you want to work together. You want to relate to the people, and it needs to have real meaning behind it. So Tilden principles 1 and 2 here. Having some meaning behind your information, connect it to the human condition, to real examples from nearby. I know for most of you on your Capital Reef presentation, it needs to be Capital Reef. But some of you I've told, go ahead and go a little bit broader because it can't be contained or found just here in Capital Reef. You'll have to go around the edges to get it as well. Okay, so content needs to be real, needs to relate to the people, it needs to relate to the human condition. All right, and choice. People love having choices. Sometimes it's yes or no. I know with my youngest, trying to get that child into the tub sometimes, distracted away from whatever else was going on. It could be a project. So what my wife came up with, and we still joke about it, is, okay, do you want a warm tub or a cold tub? And they would, of course, say, well, a warm tub. And that committed them. That was just enough of a choice that it stopped being a choice of to take a bath or not, but of what temperature you want your tub to be. It got just that little bit of commitment, that little bit past that yes or no, and into which kind. And then also the more that you can connect things to things people have done in the past, the easier it is to have them see, yes, I'm going to be, in my choices, I have chosen this before. Yes, this is just one activity, that giving a choice, asking somebody to do something new, just to take a look, spend more time in one little spot, to sit for 20 minutes in one little spot and see what they see. Even 5 minutes of sitting in one spot, we don't normally do that. So, yeah, but asking people, not telling them, giving them a choice of among a number of things. Okay, so here's the quick review on this. Work from community, building connections and collaborations, content that relates to the place, the person, and to the greater human condition, and then giving people choice. You'll be giving them parameters often, but yeah, rather than giving orders, giving options is often the best way. Okay, also in intrinsic motivation, we have to watch out for rewards and punishments because those are extrinsic motivators and we end up using them a lot. Rewards we don't think of as extrinsic motivators, but they really are, and punishments are really the same thing, just from the opposite direction. So they are extrinsic motivators rather than intrinsic. We would love to shift things to intrinsic so people buy into it and they do it by their own choice. But yes, there are times when we do have to use these are strong words, but rewards and punishments. Sometimes the reward is just that the world's a better place because you do it. All right, so the brain, looking at research on education with neurology. These are a number of things that can help you. So the brains prefer novelty. We like picking up new things. We get bored pretty easily. We are problem solvers, which is part of why I gave you puzzles at the beginning of this class. The brain is curious. It wants to see and find and discover new things and solve problems again, which is why I brought you those puzzles at the beginning. Probably of the things you remember of this class, it'll be those 3 puzzles, not this list I'm giving you right now. Embraces relevance. So yeah, we need to have a connection to it already most of the time. So novel, but not too novel. So enough that we are curious, we don't always have the answer and we want to figure it out. Presenting things as a puzzle is a really good thing. It builds community. Brains do grow with problem solving. So the more you give puzzles to people. In fact, there are studies coming out now showing that kids who grew up in a difficult life are better problem solvers because they've had to all their lives. So they might not do as well at school for a number of reasons unless school is put together in a way that suits their developed brain of heavy problem solving. Immediate feedback. I know even with homework, I never get, except for the quizzes that are graded by the computer, it takes a while before you get a grade from your homework. So by then you're often going, oh, I already forgot it, I've moved on. So the other place that you will be seeing feedback is during your presentation. And you're going to be watching people, and if they're rolling around, not paying attention, looking up at the sky in a classroom, looking at their phones or at their laptop, you get that feedback pretty immediately, and so you do want to jump. And then also, brains love to be singled out. So when I present this in a classroom, I've usually called on everyone in the room by name by now, and people do jump when you call on them by name in a classroom when they haven't raised their hands. So it really wakes up the brain. And some days I will call on one person 10 or 15 times, and it will be the most alert they have been in our class ever. So it's kind of fun to do. It's a little bit dangerous, though, because people start thinking I'm picking on them. All right, we have another presentation to put together, so I will stop this one, and there will be a third one in this series on learning styles.